It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. My lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold.
Good morning, everybody. Whoa, glasses are all fogged up. That's weird. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's show. Today is August 3rd. You believe it? We are already into August. And I want to welcome you to Coffee and Cloud Native. If this is your first time here, my name is Adrian Goins, and every night I scour the internet for news and content related to Kubernetes and Cloud Native, and every day I'm here to share with you the bits that I find interesting. Now, this is a curated list of content. I go through around 200 submissions every night, and I select around 10 for the next day's show. It's kind of funny because as the week progresses, I get less and less content, and then on Monday I have lots of stuff because I've got the whole weekend to pull stuff out of. So it was like 600 things last night, and I actually had more stuff for today's show, so I bounced some of it that wasn't time related to tomorrow's show. And that's cool. It's better to have too much than too little. The main criteria is that if I wouldn't use it, I won't talk about it. If you find the information valuable, please click on the thumbs up button so the YouTube algorithm shares this with other people. I try to end each day with knowledge that I didn't have when the day began, and I am grateful to all of you who join me here every morning so that we can all learn and grow together. I see we've got Nuno is here. Good morning. K3D cluster create. Nice. He mentions K3D, which I'm not talking about K3D today, but I actually spent most of the weekend working on the rebuild of my home cluster. And last week I said that I was just going to rip out everything, and I had to rebuild it because I originally built it with DQ Lite, and DQ Lite doesn't work, so it imploded and it was unrecoverable. I finally rebuilt it, but I rebuilt it with Cilium as the CNI and Glue for API gateway and ingress-y stuff. And that's what I spent the weekend doing. And I made a video about all these different ways you can install K3S that I've got to edit and get out to you guys. And K3D is in there. Good morning, Jamo. Anyway, I just wasted like a minute talking about that. So let's dive in. What do we got today? kube-ovn. Open Virtual Networking strives to recreate all the network components in software, regardless of the underlying topology. So OVN itself includes security policies, load balancing, tunneling. It's built on top of Open vSwitch. And kube-ovn is one of a handful of projects, well, at least two, that are bringing this to Kubernetes. It's amazing. It's so amazing that when I was looking at it last night, I was like, oh man, maybe I should have deployed this instead. I'll just have to build another cluster. This thing brings some really cool... Okay, whenever I'm troubleshooting this stuff and people ask me, how do I fix something in my Kubernetes cluster? I remind them that all of this is just a representation of physical infrastructure that we used to know how to fix. So the same rules apply. And the closer we can get to this virtualization of physical infrastructure inside of a virtual environment with virtual pieces and stuff, all of that carries through. It's just the same thing. But they're doing really cool stuff. You've got namespaced subnets, so you get a subnet per namespace, backed by a logical switch. You can even share a subnet across multiple namespaces. You can have a gateway per namespace. You can do subnet isolation. It includes support for standard network policy resources, QoS for in-cluster traffic, load balancing, distributed gateways where every node can act as an egress gateway, which is kind of like what Kubernetes does already, but at least this is intentional. BGP support for route announcements and propagation, traffic mirroring, hardware offload, VLAN support, IPv6, support for x86 and ARM. It is a comprehensive software-defined networking solution for Kubernetes. And it's pretty incredible. We are clearly in Inception land here, where we went from physical servers to virtualization of the virtual servers and Kubernetes. Eventually, we're going to pop out the other side of a black hole, and we're going to be like, oh, crap, it's all 32-bit again. Okay. Next, we have Cloud Academy course on an introduction to Helm. I talk about Helm a lot. Helm is one of those things that you definitely are going to have to use, and if you can... There's a video that's supposed to play here. I don't know why. It's a black screen. We'll scroll past it. So Helm is it's something that you're going to have to use, and the more you know about it, the better you'll be able to use it, and the better you'll be able to decide when you want your own applications or some application that doesn't have a Helm chart to be packaged up into Helm. Helm went from version 2 to version 3, which carried over a lot of stuff from version 2, but also axed a bunch of stuff that was determined to be security vulnerabilities. And this course from Cloud Academy covers all of that. It's only an hour and 15 minutes long, and it gives everything from an intro to Helm and how to use it, to how to build your own charts, and then demos, which actually represent 6, 10, 20, almost 25 minutes of that hour and 15 minutes. It's one of those things where it's like, it almost takes longer for me to think about doing it than it does to just do it. So I wanted to introduce it to you guys, and I've never taken anything from Cloud Academy, so I can't vouch for their content. This looked good. But if any of you use Cloud Academy, let me know in the comments or on Twitter, because I'm curious to know what courses that you took and how valuable they were in after you took them. The thing that raises a little bit of a red flag for me, and it's not just with them, but it's with lots of places VMware has the same problem, is the courses themselves are very short. So I'm wondering, can you really get comprehensive information on how to do something with Docker or Kubernetes in like a 15-minute class? Maybe you can if it's really specific. I don't know. But let me know if they're worth recommending. If you take this course, absolutely, certainly let me know so I can mention it again. And if they're terrible, we just won't talk about them anymore. HAProxy for Ingress. Hey, good morning, Marcel. And Ariel is here. Yeah. Ariel says he's waiting to see part 2 of my my building the home cluster, rebuilding the home cluster thing. Because I released this mega part 1 that included like Vault, and then I actually did some stuff with it that I didn't get into a part 2 yet, where I did, iSCSI and out of tree drivers, and then it imploded. So it's been 50 days since I released that video, and I've just now gotten back to where I've got content that I can do again. So anyway, I'll edit it, I'll get that out for you guys. Nuno wonders if this is like Inception, where the more we dream, the more it hurts when it fails. No, I don't think so. I feel like the more we dream, the less I recognize the boundaries or the restrictions of knowledge and progress. I was going to say reality, but that's not really true. There's some part of reality that I have to acknowledge is real. But as far as limitations about what I can do with the knowledge that I have and the world in front of me, dreams are how we get there, man. All right, HAProxy. I've been an HAProxy user forever. I still go to HAProxy when I need a load balancer that's on its own dedicated system. I run an HAProxy load balancer here in the house because I not only run Kubernetes, I have virtual machines, I have LXC containers, and I've got some other stuff floating around, like my Unify controller for the Ubiquity gear. So I run all of that through HAProxy. HAProxy there's an Ingress controller for it, which I've actually never used, which is kind of funny, and I don't really know why that is. And it's not like I don't like it or don't think that it's great or anything. It's just, Nginx is so prevalent. It's got most of the market share. HAProxy is actually number 2. So I'm going to do the same thing that I said I would do with Glue, where I said I'm just going to rip it out and install it. I will be deploying the HAProxy Ingress controller in my DigitalOcean cluster. Because why the heck not? I mean, I love them. I love going to their booth at KubeCon and being like, woohoo! I don't do that with the Nginx guys. Anyway, if you want to get started with the HAProxy Ingress controller, they wrote a really nice blog article on how to get it up and running, but also how to incorporate your own TLS certificates and how to get it running with Let's Encrypt. This is like day 2 operations for Ingress, when you get the Ingress controller and then you got to get everything wrapped in TLS. So Cert Manager and Let's Encrypt certificates are the way to do that. And they give you all of that, including default TLS certificates and, a whole bunch of stuff. So check this out. And let's give HAProxy a thumbs up. Now we get to the security part of the show. There's some badness going around. There's a new container malware called Doki, Doki, Doki. DOKI, pronounce it how you want. It's not new. It's been around. It was originally identified in January, but it still does not get detected by security scans, which is interesting. I actually have two articles here. One is an original article from these folks over at Intezer who wrote a bunch of content, and then New Vector picked it up and wrote follow-up content because New Vector actually can do detection of stuff. Basically, it's one of those pieces of malware that's exploiting bad configuration of Docker environments. If you've got your API port open on a TCP port, if you got your, okay, hang on. If the Docker API is configured for remote API and is listening on a TCP port and not only on a socket and it's listening outside of localhost, you're done if you have that hanging out on the internet. I don't know how people end up with this configuration, but somewhere out there, there's a default something that gets spun up that, like, in their articles, they say that within a few hours of hanging a vulnerable instance out on the internet, it's owned. It does your standard malware stuff after that, where it uses privilege escalation to gain host control, and then it reaches out to a C2 server and part of a botnet, and then you're done. But what's interesting about this one is the way that it finds its C2 server. Let me scroll down here to where they talk about how they do it. Okay. It's using the Dogecoin blockchain. Whoever controls this has a wallet with a fixed address, and they spend some Dogecoin. The malware detects that spend, uses the first 12 characters from the hash for a DNS entry that tells it where to find its C2 server. So as those C2 servers get taken out, whoever controls this just has to spend a fraction of a Dogecoin, and the entire botnet repoints itself somewhere else. Because it's on the blockchain, this is never going to get taken down. The only thing that we can do is detect and fix and block and make sure that we don't have Docker container or Docker API ports hanging out on the internet, which I'm sure all of you are doing that anyway. If for some reason you're not sure, all you have to do is go to one of your hosts and what you want to see is dockerd-h with a file descriptor. That means you're only listening on the socket. If you have it with a TCP configuration there, port 2379, 376, 237 something. I don't remember what the default port is. Make sure that it's only listening on localhost, or make sure that you firewall the heck out of that thing so that it only accepts connectivity from the things that need to talk to it. But you don't need to do that. Just don't. Anyway, that's out there. That's really bad. The end. We talked about Fairwinds last week. They had their Nova utility that does detection of Helm versions, so you can scan your cluster and it'll tell you if any of your Helm charts are out of date. And I went back. First of all, this came up because they released this a few days ago, and they actually have a whole bunch of open source projects that I'm not going to talk about all of them, certainly not today, but as they have new releases for them, that's kind of the criteria for when things pop up on my radar. New blog articles, new releases, something new. Then we'll probably get more of their stuff in here. This, though, all right. Gonna get Inception-y again. So Polaris, it's a validation tool that ensures your Kubernetes configurations are adhering to best practices. They're not the only ones doing this. And in a moment, I'm actually going to talk about another one, and I'll explain why. I want to start with them because of where they sit in the workflow. They can run as... there we go, here. They can run as a dashboard, so you can audit what's running. They can run as a validating webhook, so that as things are applied to the cluster, if they fail, then they just won't get applied. And they can run as a command line tool. If you run it in the cluster, so I just ran this against my brand spanking new Kubernetes cluster I built over the weekend, and I don't actually have any real workloads in there. This is all still just, Rancher, Kubernetes itself, Cilium, and Glue. And ordinarily I would exclude the kube system stuff because it picks up things like, oh, your Ingress controller is listening with host networking equals true. Like, well, yeah, of course it is. But I wanted to put together a report for you. So it gives you this. They say that their standard list of things that they check is pretty draconian, so you're likely to get worse scores than what you expect, and that's good. That lets you, it's better that than being too permissive. You get a basic list of results by category. You can filter stuff by namespace. Let's just pick glue system here. So you've got things that passed and things that didn't. And then, this isn't big enough. There we go, sorry about that. So you can see things that passed and things that didn't. And then for any of these things, so like CPU request should be set, if you click on it, it gives you more information on why they're making this recommendation, what they actually checked, and where you can find more information to decide if this is something that you want to fix. So it's not just, hey, this is a best practice, go fix it, and you're like, okay. As I was going through these, I was wondering like who actually defines these. Now, these are largely taken from the Kubernetes documentation. So it's not just some random dude out there in his mom's basement being like, best practice is to have your Docker port listening on the internet. I don't know why the guy has to sound like that. All right, so you got this, and this is cool. However, you can also run it as a command line tool or as part of a CI/CD process, as I said, so it can exit the build on critical errors if the score is too low. And in this sense, it can output just a score. Do I have this? I can show you. Polaris. I ran this last night, but now I don't remember the command exactly. So you can run it for CLI, view installation instructions. So you can either run it, Polaris audit, there we go, -- format score. Polaris audit -- format score. Yes, sorry, little snitch just popped up and was like, do you really want to let it run this? Okay, so you can run this and it gives you a score. So you see it got a 74%. That's cool. But if you have it output a report, it can only output in YAML or JSON. So that's interesting, but that's really hard for me as a human to parse. So I looked for what else is out there, and I came up with kube-score. Oh yeah, there's their open source stuff. I'll have that as well. Okay, kube-score. Kube-score kind of does the same thing, but it's CLI only, and it defaults to human readable output. They've also got this really cool demo online, so you can just paste your manifest into there, and it'll give you the same report that you would get if you were running it locally. Back over here. You can get a list of the tests that they run if you run kube-score tests, or sorry, kube-score list. And while it can process running workloads, what you would have to do is do like a loop here to pull the YAML out of the cluster and then run it through the local CLI tool. Nah, I don't like that. Polaris is better in that regard. These guys excel in boom, instant, local report, human readable. Wow, there's stuff going on. Now they don't have the follow-up stuff where you can get more resources. So you can see that together they apply to pretty much every situation. If you want more information, the Polaris report has that. If you want to test your stuff locally, this is really fast and gives you a human readable report. This can also output in machine readable formats. So I have both of these out there for you to take a look at. Both of them are excellent. Both of them have a place in the world. Just depending on what kind of output you want, you may pick one over the other. We're going to run out of time. If we run out of time today, then I'll take whatever I didn't talk about today and I'll bounce that to tomorrow as well, because I don't like running over. I really want to keep the show under 30 minutes. All right. Next. kube-score. You can tell I forget to scroll back up to the top when I finish reading all of these things to write about them. Okay, an article on RBAC. Oh, now that I'm here, actually, okay, we're gonna finish this. So an article on RBAC. Authentication is the first part of securing communication against a cluster. It's where somebody has to prove who they are, and there's lots of different ways to do that. This article does a deep dive into client certificates, bearer tokens, and OIDC tokens, which are three of the ways, and they're the three most common ways. There's some other ways that you can do it, but they're not really used, like basic auth and bleh. So this goes into how it works, and then it gives you detailed information on how to generate certificates, apply them to the cluster, use them for validation. Explains in the first one that it's actually kind of, well, nobody does it because you have to get the CA cert key off the cluster to sign stuff, and why would you do that? So instead, they talk about how you can actually have the cluster, you can generate a CSR and apply it to the cluster, and the cluster will return a signed certificate that the administrator can then pass back to whoever the client is. Then they talk about bearer tokens attached to service accounts. So it says how to create a service account, retrieve its tokens, and then use those tokens in future requests. And then it goes into how to use an OIDC provider like Keycloak, which is what these guys use. Then it mentions that there are some apps that act as an authentication proxy, and it doesn't give more information about that, but that's actually how Rancher works. Rancher acts as an authentication proxy, so it bridges to a backend identity provider. It could be Active Directory, GitHub, SAML, Keycloak. There's a whole bunch of options. And then it sets impersonation headers when it connects to a backend cluster. So it handles all the authentication bits, and then it passes the request through to the downstream cluster for you. In this article, they say that there are things that do that. We don't cover them. Just know that that's what Rancher is doing. But this is an excellent introduction into the various forms of stuff that are available for Kubernetes. And if you're not using Rancher and you're interested in adding users to your cluster and giving them their own kube configs and such, this is a great place to start. But if you want to do that, you should also check out the Kubernetes Lazy User Manager. This is from I Build the Cloud, Darren Shepard. Darren has this, he's like a master at looking at complicated, complex things and recognizing that they don't have to be complicated and complex. They can be a lot simpler. And if the tool itself can't be simple, then he'll just write another tool that does the same thing that is simple. And that's what he did here with Klum, the Kubernetes Lazy User Manager. You can create users. You can then download the kube config for that specific user. You can assign RBAC roles to them. You can modify the user. You can even disable the user. So you don't have to delete them, just disable them. And that invalidates their token. And when you enable them later, it'll generate a new token and a new kube config. So if you're doing user management with RBAC on clusters and you're not using something like Rancher, this will get you to where you want to be really, really fast. Just create a user, get their kube config, give it to them, have a good time. And if they, for some reason, need to be removed from a cluster, you can disable or delete their account. It comes with your obligatory Giphy. Do you find that when you're in Slack and people post these things, they're really annoying? I was thrilled when I discovered the little twirl button where you can make them go away. Okay, so we're back on time. We're now to the tool of the day, but I will take just a moment to scan the chat here. Marcel wants to know about Traffic. I also have used Traffic. Traffic is the default on K3S, but it's Traffic 1.7. Traffic 2.0 or 2.x, I don't know what version they're up to now, is a complete architectural change. And if you just want ingresses, like the Nginx Ingress controller or HAProxy, like they're designed for ingresses. Well, actually, I guess the latest versions of Nginx have extensions for more featureful stuff. Traffic 2, you're gonna have to spend some time with the documentation to understand how they have this new like extension plugin thing. I forget what they call it. It's like they have, whatever. They have a thing. If you're using Traffic 1, you can't just bounce over to Traffic 2. But it's still a great solution. There are lots of things that can do Ingress. There are API gateways, there's Kong, there's Glue, you can do stuff with service meshes. But if you just want an Ingress controller, Nginx is number 1, HAProxy is number 2, based on market share alone. We got Nuno is asking stuff about even the SSH connection. 2375 non-encrypted, bad. 2376 Docker port. Okay, 2375 non-encrypted. 2376 TLS encrypted, and interesting. Okay, so I'm reading back in the chat. I'm not sure what some of these comments are relating to, but Nuno says that he will try some of these things, especially Clume. So that's cool. Tool of the day. Oh, no, sorry, before tool of the day. Quick note that over the weekend, Ketchup was updated to version 0.9.4, so that pinned K3S version 1.17.7. Now, there's a newer version of K3S, but it hasn't been tested with Ketchup, although I do use Ketchup, and in fact, this weekend did, for the other video that I created, did use Ketchup with the 1.18. Whatever the latest version of K3S is, and it works fine. So if you want to use Ketchup, you can just use the K3S version flag, set the version that you want, and you'll be off to the races. So now, tool of the day. Tool of the day today is Stern. Stern allows you to do tailing of multiple container logs in your Kubernetes cluster based on regular expression. You can even do stuff across namespaces. So it's useful when you have multiple pods and you don't know where traffic is going. You just need to get logs off of all of them with a simple command. You can filter out pods. You can target containers based on labels. I guess pods based on labels. You can include or exclude specific log lines. It'll color code pod names and container names by correlation, so you can see which pods belong to which set. It'll output in human readable form or machine readable formats, so you can even output it in raw format. It'll take the raw JSON logs and you can pipe them into JQ. And it supports shell completion with bash and ZSH. The README here in GitHub has a whole bunch of examples down here at the bottom of all sorts of different ways that you can use this. But it looks like... So if I wanted to just look at all of the Cilium pods, I can just run this, and so there's three, because I have 3 nodes, so there's 3 Cilium pods and the operator itself, and as logs go by, these will continue to scroll. Now there's nothing happening on this cluster, but if I scroll back up, you should see we'll go from yellow to pink when it finds something from the operator. Okay, whatever, we're too far back. There we go, operator. So you see the operator logs are color-coded in pink, and we could filter this if I was looking for a specific log message. I could say, like, I want desired policy revision is the log message that I'm looking for. And now it'll filter out for things that only have that match. You can get crazy with the regular expressions. So that's your tool of the day, Stern. Great for log processing. I lost my button. Okay, we are going to be under time today. That's very exciting. That is all that I have for today. I will post all of the links in the video description and in the repository as soon as the show ends. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll get a notification when that happens. I will drink my coffee now. I make this coffee right before the show, and it's super, super hot, and I don't actually get to drink it because I'm talking. My reward for finishing the show is I get to drink my coffee. If you have something that you would like for me to consider for the show, you can hit me up and let me know. My contact details are in the video description, or you can tweet with the CNCN hashtag, and I will pick it up. And of course, if I mentioned a tool that you use, please tell me in the comments. If I mentioned a tool that you use, then it's terrible, or it's good, or it's wonderful. I don't know. Let me know. I try to use some of these, but obviously there's so much stuff here that I don't get to try all of them out. Yeah, let's chat. Of course, obligatory, please subscribe to the channel, click the little bell. If you like it, click the thumbs up button, and all those other stuff. I will be here every weekday for as long as there's something to talk about, and there's always something to talk about. So, have a great day. I see that people are saying goodbye and farewell, and Nuno says the tool today will be Clume. Yes, Clume looks absolutely amazing. So anyway, thank you all for coming. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow.